Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and I'd like to welcome you this evening to our first Knowledge Cafe of the year on executive function. We're very excited, and I'd like to introduce my esteemed colleague, Dr. Heidi McCarthy, who will introduce our special guest.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to see you all here in a change of location, so we'll see how this venue works for us. Can you hear us in the back? Yeah, because we do have it set up for a mic. So if you're having difficulty hearing this evening, just let us know and we can turn the mic on for you. So our Knowledge Cafe this evening is on executive functions, which is an umbrella term often used to describe a set of neurologically-based mental control capacities. As we become more aware of what executive functions are, we also become more aware of how they affect the behavior and academic performance of our students. Last year, we hosted a Knowledge Cafe over at Bell Middle School on executive functions, providing information to you in an overview and then by school levels. Many of you may have attended that session that evening. So tonight, we are so pleased to bring Dr. George McCloskey to you in this Knowledge Cafe to dig even deeper into executive functions and provide information regarding effective ways to help our children and adolescents improve their use of these functions. Dr. McCloskey is a nationally and internationally recognized expert on this topic, so we are so fortunate to have him here tonight. And we've been working on arranging this since last February, so I am so glad that it came to fruition. George frequently presents on this topic in international, national, regional, and state professional organization meetings. Tomorrow, he will be conducting professional development sessions for our faculty members. Dr. McCloskey is the author of the McCloskey Executive Function Scales and the lead author of 2 books, Assessment and Intervention for Executive Function Difficulties and Essentials of Executive Functions Assessments. George is a professor and director of school psychology research in the psychology department of the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine and holds diplomate status with the American Academy of Pediatric Neuropsychology. So let me explain to you how we've organized this evening. You're all at tables and you've got a facilitator each of the tables. So you may want to move around a bit so that you've got enough people for purposes of discussion when we get ready to have the discussion. So Dr. McCloskey is going to present till about 7:50. And at that time, at your tables, you're going to debrief on the information that you've learned. There's a facilitator at each one of the tables who will introduce themselves to you. And then as a table, you're going to formulate 2 or 3 questions based on the information that you've learned and additional information that you want that will then be asked of Dr. McCloskey by the facilitator as we go kind of around and around robin sequence. So the reason for 2 or 3 is I'm hoping that each table will get at least 2 questions. But you know when you think of a question and then the table before you says, you know, that was my question. So just in case you have some answer. So Dr. McCloskey will then answer your questions until about 8:45. You'll go back into your group discussion to kind of debrief on that. And then we'll have a final round of kind of last minute thoughts and your takeaways for the evening. So without further ado, I welcome Dr. George McCloskey.
It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of interest in the topic of executive functions, and so it's good for us to have this discussion, although it's going to be short, very brief, right? I'm going to talk for you until about 7:50 or talk with you. And there's a lot I'd really like to pack in there, but we'll see how much we can get in. And we do want to have the discussion. I think it's really important that you have the discussions at the table, and then we set up some questions that would be, because I think that would be the best way to get the information across to you, the most effective way to have it contextualized with the questions that you want to know the most about. So I'm hoping that I get enough of a background here for you to kind of generate some good discussion at the tables and good questions. I think this is probably the most important part here is to start thinking about what executive functions are, and to kind of just simplify it. It's just it's the part of the brain that enables us to answer the questions of what and when. And it's very, very important to think about this. This is awareness of what you should be doing when you should be doing it, not the actual doing of it. And so all the things that you've heard that are associated with executive functions, I'm sure there's a long list that you've heard about now. Attention, inhibition, working memory, planning, organization, problem solving. It's starting to get just about everything that a brain can do, you're going to hear it be categorized as executive functions. And that's not the case. See, none of those are executive functions. Executive functions are all associated with those things. In fact, executive functions pretty much cue and direct the entire all parts of the brain. Whenever you're doing anything, you can be under conscious control with executive functions. The question is whether you will be or not. Okay? And do you recognize when you should be doing things, what you should be doing? And then, importantly, also, there's a distinction here between executive functions and executive skills. Executive skills enable the brain to know how. And so these are the two parts of the neural network that are housed in the frontal lobe that begin the awareness component of what you should be doing, when you should be doing it, and how you should do it. And then the rest of the brain responds to those components when they're activated. If you don't do the when, then you're not going to get to the how. That's a very critical component, And now the how would be the issue of, for example, take planning. Planning is a very complicated process. It involves many parts of your brain to do it. And so in order to get to get the point of planning, your executive function component needs to be looking out in the world and say, you need to make a plan now. See, and that's its only job, is to monitor the environment, to look around and let you know when you should be doing certain things. And planning is one of those. So a particular component, your specific neural network, is engaged when you are looking out in the world and get the cue to yourself to plan. So now that's the function. We need to make a plan. The how component of this neural circuit is next, responds to that and says, okay, I know the 8 different parts of our brain response to making a plan. I'll activate the neural operation and we'll have a great plan. See how that works? So the brain, think of the brain as the workers. When you are doing something, when you're actually engaged in perceptions, feelings, thoughts, or actions, those are the parts of the brain that do those things. Executive functions don't do any of those things. Executive functions cue you for doing them. And then executive skills connect from the cue, we should be doing this, to the parts of the brain that actually do it. See, how do we get that accomplished? You need to know what parts of your brain to activate in order to do this well. And so some brains may wake up and say, I need to make a plan, so that's good that you're aware of that fact. But then they may say to themselves, okay, the executive skill manager responds exactly, to the function manager and says, no problem, I know the 3 parts of our brain necessary to make a plan. I told you there were 8 in this context. Your brain thinks there's 3. See, what kind of a plan are you going to have? Not a very good one. So it's good that you know when, but you don't really know how, do you? So I can teach you how. See, and some people know how, but they never know when. So no matter how capable they are, if you don't cue them, it doesn't happen. But when you cue them, it does. See, so you can substitute for the function manager, and then you can direct that and drive that. But that's good that you know how. But now the challenge is, can we help you understand when, so that you can function independently? Because if someone only has to tell you, that's not going to be good, right? So the intervention here often has to start with a skill. Do you know how to do this? See, do you know how to make a plan? No. I can teach you how to make a plan. We have cognitive strategy instruction, practice and rehearsal. There's things we can do to improve executive skills. And I can do that in a classroom with you or in an office with you. But then the question becomes, now that you know how, when you leave this room, will you remember when? See, so the intervention for when is different from the intervention for how. How is where I teach you how to do it. And then when is now, how do I get you to understand you need to generalize this capacity and be attuned to when you should use it? And that's a little more difficult intervention, not impossible, but a little bit more challenging because it's educating the brain to be aware of what it should be aware of when it leaves the room with me. And so those functions and skills work together. I like to consider them or think about them as managers in the brain and any different executive capacity that you have, whether it's planning or organization or inhibition, working memory, these all have their own manager, and their only responsibility is to cue you, when you should do that, and to know which parts of the brain to activate so that you get the how done. So the when and the how work together as managers, within a single unit. Michael Posner did a study a while back in 1994, and he looked at brains, and it's interesting because this kind of sets the stage for what we're talking about today. I have to do this very quickly. So basically, you see activation of the frontal lobe here when an individual is performing a task. And the task was to simply look at the screen, and a noun would be flashed on the screen, tell us a verb that goes with the noun. And then and that's all they told you. If you see a noun, say a verb. Now, what they didn't tell you is they're going to flash them one at a time, 1 per second, 40 seconds, 40 different words. So now it's a rapid verb generation task. When you're given minimal directions and asked to do something, your brain activates to help you understand what, when, and how. So we see a lot of activation here in the frontal lobe. Red most active, light yellow, light green, then light blue. A lot of activation near the anterior cingulate, which helps with decision making. So we're seeing an activation of the brain here. They did this with several subjects, again, the same pattern, until they ran someone through, and it was very different because the machine was not correctly calibrated. So they ran the experiment. They said, let's just do this again very quickly. They ran the same person through the experiment right away, right after they did it the first time. They were so surprised at what they saw on the screen, they created a second condition in the experiment. In this condition, they gave people a list of 40 nouns. They said, here are 40 nouns. I want you to take this list and write down a verb that goes with each of these nouns and familiarize yourself with the connection, because when we put you in the scanner, we're going to just show you the noun. You just tell us the verb you wrote down. Okay? So now at this point, you know exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. They told you very explicitly ahead of time, and you rehearsed it before you got into the scanner. And this is the pattern that they saw when they performed that task. You see the lack of activation of the frontal lobe here. So we're seeing, when you know what, when, and how, you don't activate your frontal lobe. When you need to, and you perceive a need to, you will be activating that part of the brain. So this kind of leads us to the fact that a lot of times we can be functioning effectively, but we're very passive. So the workers are doing their job, right? The brain is active and you're engaging, but who's running the show? That's a question. Who's managing the system here? And whenever we guide our children through tasks very specifically, or when teachers are expected to guide them through 504 plans or IEPs, right? We often get a situation here where we have brains that are simply responding to the commands of other individuals' brains. If I have to prompt you for attention, Billy doesn't pay attention. Would you please prompt Billy for attention so that when he's in class, if you prompt him for attention, he'll learn a lot more. If he doesn't pay attention, he's not going to learn anything. But Billy really doesn't understand when he should be paying attention or really how to do it very well. So you need to prompt him for attention. If you do that, he'll learn more effectively. That could be a 504 plan, right? And so now we have Billy responding to the teacher's commands for attention. That's a passive stance of the brain. We are not going to be activating executive function in that situation. You're going to see the second screen we saw there. There's a lack of activation because the brain doesn't perceive that it needs to do anything in particular other than follow your commands. And the problem here with a lot of these situations is that students very often are not aware of what it is that we want them to do or need to do or what the problem is. If you're having difficulties and someone's guiding you through, whether it's a parent or teacher, it's important for the individual to realize that there's a problem here. Do you realize that you can't do this without my help? Okay? Do you realize why I'm helping you? Do you realize what's going on here? And very often I'll ask students, do you realize you have a 504 plan? Which many of them don't, right? Why not? What is the plan? Do you know what the plan is? Do you know what's in it? Do you know what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it? If you don't, see, you're totally unaware of the fact that anything's going on here. Why would you expect a brain to grow and change and develop better executive functions if it isn't even aware of the fact it's not using them at the time? So the awareness component is very critical here. Do you realize what's going on here? Now that you understand that, see, now we have a possibility for intervention here that follows through, through a continuum here. Orienting being the first stage. You need to be aware of the fact that something's wrong. You need to be aware of the fact that there's a goal here. And very often it's the individual's, but if it's the individual's goal, it's going to go a lot easier. Okay? When individuals are younger or not capable of making their own goals, we often guide them to understand or try to understand why we think this is so important for them to do. Once that's established, see, now you know why we're doing this. Now, in the first stage, I'm going to show you how to do it. And I'm going to cue you, and I'm going to help you do it, and I'll walk you through it through external control. Appreciate that also medication is a form of external control. You're not changing your brain, the medication is changing your brain. Now you can respond because the medication's in your system, but you haven't learned how to respond. The medication is enabling you to respond. So external control is when we're running the show, or something else is. So external control, I'm going to show you how to do it. Now that you understand what to do, we'll practice that some. But now we have to have bridging strategies that enable the brain to start understanding. I'm going to show you ways that you can start doing this for yourself and give you feedback about how well that's going. Okay? We need strategies that enable the brain to start performing for itself and then with feedback about the accuracy of performance, it's going to improve its ability to do it on its own. We gradually fade the prompting to the point where we have internal control. So we're going from external to internal control through bridging strategies. There's got to be something that happens in between I'm telling you all the time and suddenly you're telling yourself. Okay? Without that bridging, it's not going to happen that effectively. So we need to have these strategies in place. And it's just written out what we just talked about there. So I mentioned to you executive functions are about the what, and the when. Executive skills are about the how. But that's not good enough. You know, you need to have a more practical or more specific statement about what executive functions are. So to get further with this, you know, it's not this idea of the CEO of the brain. Now, we're going to compare it to the idea of a company and say CEO of the brain. Think about this. Have you ever seen a company that has a CEO and 10,000 employees, and that's it? And the CEO supervises all the employees day to day, knows what they're all doing. They may be throughout the world, and yet the CEO is running them all. This would not be a very effective corporation, right? But this is exactly the way some people present it with executive functions. The idea that there's a central location within the brain that runs everything that you do. See, the CEO of the brain. If that were the case, your brain would be the size of New York City. This isn't going to work out. There's got to be, it's not the CEO of the brain. That's too simplified. I'm not going to suggest there is a CEO, but there's a better model which would suggest that there's a management structure within your brain. See, not just CEO, it's everybody in management. And any company has several layers of management. So there are actually several layers of executive function that we have to talk about for executive capacities. It's not enough to simply think about the first stage, which we talked about, inhibition, planning, organization, working memory. All those are things that you do with your brain, and there have to be supervisors to tell those workers what to do. But in any corporation, there are supervisors who are the supervisors of the supervisors, right? In other words, the first line managers are the ones that directly connect with the workers. But they, you know, and they're telling the workers what to do, and the workers are being perceptions, feelings, thoughts, and actions for a very general class of workers here in the brain, if we think about that. And the first line of management structure here has to connect directly with the workers to get them to do what needs to be done, okay? But if you wake up and you self-regulate through the day, deal with things effectively, make decisions, know what, when, and how for the day, right? Go to sleep, get up the next day, do the same thing, get up the next day, do the same thing. Starting to sound like your life. No, it could be, you know, but appreciate it. It's not, because think about this. Then you get to Friday and you go, oh, that thing that I had to do by Friday, it didn't get done. Why not? Well, because you were in the moment every day thinking about what you had to do right then, instead of thinking about what you had to do by Friday. Self-regulation executive functions cannot deal with that. They can just deal with the day to day. What are you into right now? Can I help you function right now effectively? There has to be a level above that directs the directors that says, don't do that right now, because if you do, we won't get where we need to be by Friday. There has to be a regulator of the regulators, or that's not going to happen. So in order for you to put days together, 2 days, a week, a month, a year, 5 years, you have to have a supervisor of the supervisors. And that's the second level, self-determination, goal setting, and self-realization. A higher level of awareness of what your strengths and weaknesses are, what your possibilities are. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But so there has to be a structure here, and the structure looks more like this. And I do have a lot of self-regulation managers. The many models of executive functions have 5 or 8 or 10 executive functions. Now, my belief on this is what I need to figure out when I work with an individual who's not functioning effectively is, what do I have to say to you to get you to understand what I'm looking for? If I can ask you questions, and then I can get your workers to respond to me, see, that's good, because now I know the workers are there and they can respond. The issue is, if I know what to say to you, get them to respond, I have to teach you that so you can start getting them to respond to yourself. Okay? What do I have to say to you to get you to understand what's going on? Once I know that, now I'm in the driver's seat. But if I only think there are 10 things or 8 things I have to say to your brain, and there are actually 33 of them, I'm going to be missing a lot of language to understand what I have to say to you. So that this is why I have so many self-regulation managers at the first level. They each do something different in the brain. And we set up cognitive strategies, we need to know which of them to call on to get things efficiently out of a brain. And so that's where we look at that. Then self-realization, self-determination, we're going to go to that level. We're not going to go up toward the CEO tonight and talk about those levels. They often don't emerge until early adulthood, although they can be precociously, you know, engaged in middle school and high school students. I often don't talk with a lot of groups about self-generativity and trans self-integration. So we'll keep it at this lower level, these 2 first levels here. And notice we have that manager. We said there are functions and skills in the brain. Sorry about that. And so they have to work together to get things done. And so there's just some slides here for you on functions and skills, if you're interested in that. And then these are the workers, right? Perceptions, feelings, thoughts, actions, emotions being the backdrop on which all this occurs. So Emotions are always there, always functioning. They're more difficult to take control of because they're already out of the box before you start thinking. And thought processes are often the most effective way to start getting control of emotions. But see, you're already there. So how do you get control of something that's already functioning, right? It's a little bit trickier, but it's not impossible, and we do it. And so these are the workers, and now, so these are the things we talked about conceptually. I'm not sure where best to point this, so that signal gets to the box here. Okay. The computer? Okay. All right. So we talked about those, see, and then it moves ahead about 5. Okay. Let's go back. All right. So I told you there were 33, and if you divide them here into, let's go back 1. Okay. If we divide them into 7 different divisions or clusters, you're going to get a better idea here. So I mentioned to you Billy is being asked to pay attention, and so the teacher's prompting Billy for attention. And notice that there are actually 3 managers in the attention division. And so the teacher is prompting Billy for attention with a 504 plan. 2 weeks in, I asked her how it's going. And she said to me, not very good. What's wrong? Well, I tell him to, I prompt him for attention, he doesn't pay attention. I said, well, what do you do? She said, I say, Billy, pay attention. And Billy doesn't pay attention. I said, well, maybe that's a bit vague. And she looked at me like, how much more specific can you be than pay attention? See, and I said, well, actually, it can be a lot more specific because pay attention is a division command that makes an assumption that you know the 3 managers that you have to activate and get them to work together so that you're paying attention. That's a little bit more complicated than you think. So when you break it down, you realize there are actually at least 3 components here of attention we need to educate. And the first one is perceived, and that's just the ability to realize that you should be activating sensory systems. Often you get this, I didn't hear that, I didn't see that, exactly. If you're not looking, if you're not listening, you won't be paying attention, will you? So the first stage of an attention command should start with a call to attention, start with a call to activation of sensory systems. It should start out with look, listen, or touch. Look, listen, touch. Well, what should I be listening to, or looking at, or touching, right? Listen to me, look at the board, touch the blocks. Well, for how long? Listen to me till I'm done talking. Look at the board till we're finished. Touch the blocks till the task is done. Do you see how much more specific that is than pay attention? Pay attention is pretty vague, right? What does that mean? Pay attention to what? Listen to me till I'm done talking. Much more specific. And embedded in that sentence are 3 prompts in order of 1, 2, 3 operation. See, I want to wake up the managers in order of operation and get them functioning together. What do I have to say to you to get you to understand what I'm looking for? That becomes the question. Okay? In that situation, pay attention is not enough. Okay, sorry about that, too vague. Let me be more specific. Okay? Now that you know that connects with the brain, that's where we start. Okay? Now, what's the strategy for you taking control of attention? You need to know that you should be looking, listening, or touching, so that would be the first question you ask, right? Should I be looking, listening, or touching? What should I be looking at? How long should I do it? So there are 3 questions you can ask yourself to get to this as a strategy, if you're thinking about it. See, if you need to think about it. Now, very interestingly, though, for many of these, attention, engagement, optimization, efficiency, the way that I strengthen the brain's ability to, now that's the function, you know, what should I be doing, when should I be doing it? The skill of this for attention is simply to get individuals to pay attention more, okay? With feedback about the accuracy of your performance. Pay attention longer. Keep paying attention. That's good. That's good. See, that's what I'm looking for. In other words, the feedback is the component here that we're looking for in the practice and rehearsal. You do not need to show individuals how to do attention, engagement, optimization, or efficiency functions. Our brains know how to do them. You just get it's like riding a bike. Get on the bike, start pedaling, I'll tell you how you're doing. After a while, you got it down pretty well. See? But the feedback was critical. And getting on the bike and doing it was just as critical. I'm not going to sit you down and talk about how to ride a bike. Get on the bike, start doing it. See? Inhibit more, inhibit even more. How would you get a 4-year-old to inhibit impulsive responding? Because the best strategy is practice and rehearsal with feedback about performance. How about let's play a game? Let's play Simon Says. Now, the more you play Simon Says, the stronger your inhibition capacity. Because you're strengthening the neural networks, the connection between the skill manager and the workers that have to do the inhibition, the connection is being strengthened every time that you do it. And if you do it effectively, see, that's strengthening. If you're not, then you have to realize, no, you missed it. See? And so the game gives you feedback. Most games give you immediate feedback about how you're doing. And that's a process that you can engage with the brains. keeping it interesting and effective is going to be the best way to engage brains, especially when they're younger. And then bridging it into the classroom. The things that you do to strengthen executive functions need to be used in other places too. You may have to cue them about that. See, that thing we did over here at Game Like, you have to use it here too. It's being applied the same way here. So we often explain that and work with individuals to get that bridging effectiveness. Memory, inquiry, solution, these are going to require cognitive strategies very often. The brains develop all of these from near birth. All 33 of these are developing in your brain from the time you're born. As we get older, maturation here is simply a matter of getting better at doing what you do with this. See, it's the same neural network for inhibition when you are 5 months old as when you're a year old, or 2 years old, or 4 years old, or 8, or 16, or 40. It's still the same neural network. It's just you've been using it for a lot longer, haven't you? And the longer you use it, and the better at you get at using it, see, now that's more effective for you. So age definitely has an effect and impact on these, as long as you're getting feedback about whether you're doing it well. Some brains don't do it very well at all and don't know they're not doing it well. The feedback never really comes about. That's not very good. We need to fix that up. And then practice it. I'll give you feedback about how it's going. That's the top ones. And they are developing from near birth, all of these. And so and they emerge in school. Now, while we have the capacity for these, we tend to emphasize them in order of operation from left to right in school. Attention is the first thing preschool teachers want from you. Okay? I need your attention. Now I need to get you engaged. By the time you're in elementary school, we're also thinking about optimization and efficiency to some degree, and especially into late elementary school. By the time you get to middle school, efficiency is going to be important, but memory starts becoming more critical, as well as a little bit of inquiry and solution. But then when you get to high school, inquiry and solution are the big time things that we emphasize. And so these kind of follow the course of how we emphasize them in education in terms of development from the top left to the bottom right. And think about planning. I mean, 4-year-olds can plan. See, 4-year-olds can plan. Here's my 4-year-old son, now 28, then 4 years old, right, sitting on the carpet with his 2-year-old brother, and he hears his mother coming down the steps, and he thinks to himself, if I punch my brother right now, as he punches me back, Mom will come in the room, she'll see him, he'll get in trouble. See, framing your brother in a 4-year-old brain is planning in a 4-year-old brain. See, DB says it is, it's planning, okay? And so they know how to do it. But here's the thing, that kind of planning isn't going to get the biology project that's due in 4 weeks done in middle school. It's just, I get that you know how to plan, but you really don't know how to plan for this. See? So you're going to need to have a strategy for that. So what we do now is we up your game. See, you've got some more nuance here that has to happen. So it's not that brains don't understand how to do these, they don't have to understand how to do them at the level we're asking of brains. In that case, you need a strategy. So memory, inquiry, solution, we have to teach strategies that you can use to meet the demands and the challenges of a level of expectation for those kinds of things. Practice isn't going to be enough. Let's practice planning. Practice it more. That's a bad plan. I just gave feedback, right? That's a bad plan. That's another bad plan. No, feedback isn't going to do it. You need a strategy that you use and then get feedback about the use of strategy. Okay. So that's how we strengthen the bottom ones. And we often start those in late elementary school. Okay, and there's practice, we talked about it, and that's what we mentioned. Okay. And most of what a teacher says, the more specific the language that you use, the more likely the individual is going to activate the neural networks that you want them to activate. See, you need to know what parts of the brain to activate. If you don't, it has to start with somebody figuring that out. See? What language is going to work here, or what symbol, whatever. What's going to work to get you to understand what workers to activate? As I said, once I know that, see, that's what I have to teach to you through the bridging strategy. But I have to get that right, and that's where the external control phase comes in, see? I'm trying to get this out of you. I'm trying to figure out how to get you to function effectively, but I'm running your show. And if we stay in that mode through high school, right? We've got 504 plans that don't change all the way through up to high school. Is that going to happen, in college, the world of work? See, when is this going to stop? When is someone going to stop telling this person what to do, when doing how to do it, and when are they suddenly going to start doing it for themselves? See, I don't think it's suddenly. I think it's a process here that has to happen with a real conscious plan, and a goal. Do you realize you need to start doing this for yourself, and this is what we're trying to get to. Now, it may take a while, but my idea is, 504s have a goal, which is get off this as soon as possible. My guidance of you at home has a goal. Get off this as soon as possible. When will that be? I don't know, but I'm hoping by the end of the year. You know, we're going to teach you, show you what to do, and we're going to teach you strategies, start doing it for yourself, give you feedback so that by the end of the year, you'll be able to do it for yourself. If you're still not there at the end of the year, that's okay. We'll keep trying to do this next year, and the next year too, and the next year. So patience is critical here, because not all brains catch on real quickly about these things. We're looking for, it's not like the switch is off, we flip the switch and now it's on. I'm so glad you started working with somebody on your executive functions, because now you can do it. It doesn't work that way. The idea here is that it's cumulatively over time, gradually over time, more on than off. Any given day, it may be on or off. I can't guarantee it. Some parents say, he was doing it for a week, then it was gone for a month, and then it was back, and then it was gone. You know, is he developing or not? That's development. That's how it works. It's on and off. You're myelinating the neural networks in your brain. You're trying to get them to do what you want them to do more efficiently and more effectively over time. But initially, they're not fully myelinated, and it's like a bad connection. Like if you have a great battery pack, it may or may not charge your computer, right? If you hold it just right, it does. You let it go, it doesn't. See what's happening there? There's this transmission that's trying to get through. Your intention is for it to get through, but it doesn't get through all the time. Okay? As much as you'd like it to, it's just not happening sometimes. And that's okay. But the idea here is as you grow and develop, the more you try to do this, the more effective you'll get at it, and more consistent you'll get at it. So that over time, we're looking for more on than off, gradually over time. But any given day, it may be off, and it may be on. And so we're more specific with attention. We talked about the cues for that. Development is what we just mentioned here. And sometimes you have delays. It's just delayed. There's nothing particularly wrong with the neural networks. And if you aren't asked to use it a lot, do you think you'll be developing it all? Some individuals are not asked to do the 33 very much. And if you're not really required to do it or not challenged to do it or engaged in trying to do it, then your brain is going to remain undeveloped, underdeveloped. It's not that you don't have the capacity to do it, you're not doing it very much. If you're not doing it very much, you're going to look deficient, maturationally delayed, okay? And some individual brains are just slower developing than others, even with good exposure. So the fact that we can have maturational delays is important to understand, because that's that patience component. The more we work on this, we're going to get there. It's just going to take some time. That's all right. And you're going to make mistakes. That's all right, too. Right? The brain learns best from its mistakes. We all make them. It's good to have them. The more of them you make, the better you learn. So that's the perspective I take with this. But if you're delayed, appreciate it. At 30% delay, that means at age 6 you kind of look like a 4-year-old. It's not that you're not doing it. You're doing it more like someone much younger than you. And that's the question. When you look at the behavior, what does it remind you of in terms of the level that you would expect this? What are your expectations for this? Sometimes you have adult expectations for 5-year-olds, right? But no, in terms of 5-year-olds, what do you think? Does he look like most 5-year-olds? Or are we looking more at a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old? 6 years old, what do you think? Looks more like a 4-year-old? That's a 30% delay. 30% delay. If you maintain that 30% delay, at 9, you look like you're 6. At 15, you look like you're 10. At 21, you look like you're 14. See, most parents go, no, he's falling further behind. No, it's still a 30% delay. But the gap seems to be widening. But also, you're developing. See, you're at 15, at 15 or at 21 even, you don't look like your peers, but you don't look like yourself either when you were younger. See? So in other words, there's been growth and development here. It's just not as much as you'd like, as fast as you'd like. Okay? Look back at 15. He's not doing the things he was doing at 10. He's doing more things now than he was at 10. Yeah, that's true. Look back to 5. Oh, yeah, okay. So you see the difference. There's growth here, but it's not as fast as everybody else. And that's a hard part. But think about that. Even in the absence of anything that we would do to a brain in terms of intervention, most brains eventually grow out of what we're talking about. 21, you look like you're 14. At 30, you look like you're 20. Oh, that college thing. Now you're ready to do it. It only took an extra 12 years to get there. So very often I have to tell parents, teachers, clients themselves, not forever, just longer than you'd like. This is going to go on, not forever, just longer than you'd like. Eventually, you will get there. It's just a matter of time. Time, maturation. But by the way, here's some things you could do to try to get there sooner. We can offer you strategies to help you get there, but it may take a while. 21, you look like you're 14. 30, you look like you're 20. At 39, you look like you're 26. By 25, we have an expectation of the brain not to be fully formed. I don't know where that came from. I keep hearing this. The brain's fully formed at 25. Wow, that's pretty stunning. because every time you learn something new, you're changing your brain. So I don't think it's ever going to be fully formed at 25, and you got a lot to learn beyond 25. What we're talking about here is that connection of self-regulation, because self-regulation is there from birth. It's getting better, but then suddenly around 10 to 14, self-determination and self-realization wake up, and you want to be your own boss, okay? And you have those neural networks now trying to direct self-regulation. So you now have directors of directors that are interconnecting with that first level of self-regulation and trying to integrate the whole process. That's the explosion of growth in the adolescent brain. And by 25, you ought to be functioning with those two levels at least effectively to stay out of trouble on work and be on your own. Make decisions on your own that won't get you in trouble by 25. This is what we're shooting for in brains, okay? Think about that. Not 18, 25. Okay, it kind of configures things when you think about it that way. But so we're being patient here. But if at 40 or 39 or 40 you look like you're 26, see, you've arrived. You are now able to make decisions for yourself and stay out of trouble. You won't be needing that supervision we've been providing up to age 40. Think about that. See, there are some individuals that do require supervision until age 40. All right, we didn't want to admit that in previous generations. We just looked the other way about that. Today, we're a little bit more understanding of what's really going on. And it's a complicated world out there. So we have to really be kind of patient for some brains to get there. I'm not making excuses, you know. You got to get there, but some brains are just going to take longer than you'd like. But they're going to get there. Keep it going. At 60, you look like you're 40. I'm looking for the downside. 60, you look like you're 40. Would you not appreciate that? Right? At 90, you look like you're 60. I am 64. I have a 28, 26-year-old. It took them 13 and a half years to get college degrees, right? The usable college degrees. Okay? Think about that. That's not 4 years each. Okay? I have a sophomore at Pitt right now, second year Pitt. He may take 5 years or 6. Who can know these things, right? Obviously, I'm not retiring anytime soon. I'm thinking, because I don't want to saddle them with education loans the size of mortgages, right? So I'm helping out here. But I'm thinking that I'll be working until 90 or 95. And if I'm going to have to do that, I would like a frontal lobe to go with that, right? Because you need that to work. And so if I could be thinking at 90 like I'm thinking at 60, I would appreciate that, see? But you have to appreciate 50% of individuals over the age of 85 aren't thinking that way. They don't have a brain to go along with their body. The deal was we go together, right? Brain, body, we're going together. Why are you still here? I'm gone, you're still here, right? The bodies are still here, the brains are gone. Brains understand that about themselves. Epigenetics, cultural transmission, there are theories about how brains rewire themselves. The idea being brains are beginning to understand that you want them around longer. If you don't want this situation of deterioration of your brain at age 70 to 85, you're going to have to wait for me to wire myself a little better. You want the deluxe model. That's going to take a lot of programming. You got the bargain basement model, frontal lobes 1.0, right? Runs out around 65, 70. That was the deal, right? And you guys are pushing it to 100. Oh, excuse me, it's going to take a while here, right? So you have to appreciate that if you have a brain that's slower developing at this point, it may be an evolutionary advantage, and that you'll have it longer. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And it's my story for my clients, because some of them are very depressed, and they're just despairing about, is this going to be forever, right? No. This is going to look good for you, see, later on. And I got clients that come to me and tell me, I was just like him when I was his age. He's 12, he's having all these problems. I was just like him at 12. Oh, really? Okay. What are you doing now? I run my own company. Oh, so you're running your own company now, but you were just like him at 12. Yeah, I got started late. Oh, I know, I'm sure. I'm sure you keep telling me your history. I'll see the trajectory you're talking about, right? Okay, and he's matching your trajectory. Think about that, see? And it turned out okay for you. He should be so lucky as to be like you and run his own company at 55. I understand. They'll say things like that, right? And it's like, no, I don't want to make my mistakes. That's okay, he won't. He'll make his own. They'll make their own mistakes, but they'll probably get where you are too. And I've had some parents, interesting, a guy running his own trucking business, he's 60, and he tells me I was just like my son at that age. And I said, what are you doing now? He said, running a company. And I said, you should be so lucky. He should be so lucky to be like you. And he said, you don't understand. My wife runs the company. I married my wife, she really runs the company. He should be so lucky as to marry someone like your wife. That's called marry a lobe. You don't have one, find one and marry it. This is a solution for many people. You have to appreciate that, right? And I said, but here's the thing. If you don't have a frontal lobe and you're aware of that and you marry one, you need to bring something of equal or greater value to the table in this relationship. Otherwise, they're going to get tired of being your frontal lobe. See, that's not going to work so well. How long have you been married? 35 years. Wow, you brought something to the table. I'm thinking, right? I think you need to educate your son about what that is, because he may need it. If you didn't know your frontal lobe, he may be needing what you had there. Okay. So see, there's ways you can help him. Okay. But there's also people who tell me, I don't do all that. I hire people to do that. Well, that's called rent-a-lobe. You got marry-a-lobe, you got rent-a-lobe, and you got grow-a-lobe. That's what I help you do. See? But if you can't grow one fast enough, you can always marry one or rent them, whatever the case may be. Okay. So there's different ways to get around this problem. Yeah. But I see the trajectory in parents, and they tell me their histories. And I say, it's interesting that you're telling me about your late start and how, but you got here, didn't you? See, hold out hope for the future. It's not all lost just because he's looking like you. I just want to save him the grief. No, don't worry. He'll make his own mistakes. We all have our own things we have to learn, right? And he'll do that. But I suspect he'll turn out as well as you did, because here you are, and this trajectory is pretty similar. So this is the way I'm looking at development with a lot of individuals. And as I said, it's not continuous. It looks more like this. See, it's just some days it's there, some days it's not. We have plateaus where it's just gone for a while, and then you may be better than everybody else at it for a week or two, right? And then you're back to not being so good at it. And it just keeps going until it starts evening out. But even the best of us still have our variations. In each day, right? I was listening to NPR driving up here, and there was, have you ever done the Story Corps? They do the stories, right? Okay, and the one guy sent the guy a letter and said, stop telling people these stories. They're effing doing, and he just like went off on them, right? About how terrible these stories are, and they're just, they're just dumbing down people and all this kind of thing. And so then he got the guy. He said, well, here's a person who obviously doesn't agree with me. I think I'll have a discussion with him. Let's see what happens if I discuss things with him. And the guy was so apologetic. And he said, sure, I'll be glad to do it. He said, that wasn't me. See? And I hear what he's saying. See, you have to appreciate, there are times in the day when you are not you. That's when your frontal lobes are exhausted. See? It's not a good time for you to do the things, perceiving, feeling, thinking, acting, you think you should do when you're not really in charge. Who's around here right now? And if there's no boss around, maybe you should just let the workers be quiet, right? Because otherwise they can get you in a lot of trouble. So you have to appreciate this. Personality is your frontal lobe developed on top of your temperament over the years. And we see a pattern that we call personality, but it's your frontal lobe development. See? And you can be a very different person when your frontal lobes are on and when they're off. It's not a personality change, it's just a reality that we do. The one thing that personality research will tell you, personality is not innate and immutable and unchangeable. It changes all the time. It depends on how your frontal lobes are feeling at the time. So any of us have variations. We just need to be aware of what our variations are. I have the language of frontal lobe meltdown in my home. They do not approach me. I am approaching frontal lobe meltdown. And my family knows that means they need to get out of my way, because there's dad and there's dad. And dad is approaching and you don't want to deal with it. Because you know what that gets like. It's very ugly when dad's around. So they get it. Go self-regulate. Don't mess with me, because I can't even run my own show, let alone yours right now, right? But if I tell you that at 11 o'clock at night, and you come to me with your homework at midnight, this could get ugly, because I did warn you that dad is here now, not dad, right? Okay. I'll do my best to try, but here's the thing, it could get ugly. So we just let people know when you're not there, because you can't maintain them 24/7. But over time, they're going to get there. And we just keep working with the brain. It's on its own trajectory. Old maturation theory said, don't mess with it till it's ready to deal with you. The new maturation theory says, no, we're going to keep trying to get you there, and if we do a good enough job educating your brain and waiting for you to get there, then we may see a big spurt at some point. I often see individuals who make fairly quick jumps here, and parents think that was like overnight. Is that hormones or what? Excuse me, we've been working on this for 4 years. See? I've been asking this brain to do it for 4 years, and now it's starting to do it a lot. See? But that's the thing. If you hadn't been telling it what to do, when it got there, it wouldn't know what to do, would it? So the education piece is so critical, but the patience piece is just as critical. I know you're going to pick up on this. I know you want to as much as I want you to, right? And you're going to get there. You're not there yet. That's okay, right? Some days you're there, some days you aren't. I get it. We're going from more on than off gradually over time. You are going to get there, and you have to keep that narrative and scenario going until they get there, because it's patience. Here's progress monitoring for 14 weeks with an individual I'm working with. First week out of the box. Blue is good. Darker the blue, the better. Light blue is prompts. Dark blue is self-regulation. Red is it didn't work. The strategy didn't work. Green, a higher level of prompting than you would want, but still getting there, okay? And you can see in 14 weeks, this individual is up and down. The first week was great. Only 3 times, only 3 class periods did teachers have to cue him to be emotionally engaged the way he needed to so that he could sit through the class and get something out of it. See, he had already started using the strategy very effectively. And then second week came, and they were ecstatic. Oh my God, you got Zach to change behavior. That was so great, you know. Wait for it. What did I tell you about this development thing, right? It's not always, it's just going to be on and off. And second week came, look at all the red. And they said, it's not working anymore. It's working just as well this week as it was the first week. This is Zach's brain trying to make this happen, and it's not always going to be there. But he's still trying to make it happen. In fact, look at Monday, not a good day. At the end of the day, debrief in 10 minutes. Zach, what happened? Did you use a strategy? What do you do tomorrow to make sure it happens better, right? And then look at Tuesday, much better day. Wednesday, not so good. Thursday, better day. In other words, he's trying to get there. It's just not going to happen the way we want for brains. On and off, even in the last week, 14, we still had red. We still had red. But cumulatively speaking, we're talking about 78%. I don't have that in there. A slide in there for that. But basically, but it's 78% on, 22% off. That's what the blues versus the red. But here's the thing. If I didn't progress monitor and have the teachers actually mark that every day, and I said to them, you have to do this part of it, right? We're going to do the intervention, but you need to let me know if it's working. You need to let me know if it's working. So I'm not going to sit here and at the end of 14 weeks, sit down and have a meeting with you and say, so what do you think? Did it work? Because some of them would go, I don't know. Some days it was there, some days it wasn't, right? I don't know if that worked or not. Because we don't have these little slope calculators in our heads to figure out whether we're making progress over time. If I didn't monitor it and show them the 14 weeks and the fact that by the end of that time, the total number of times that he was on versus off was 78% on, 22% off. See? He started out at 20% on, 80% off. I think we're making growth here. See? I think we're changing things around. But we need to think about it objectively, not subjectively. And without progress monitoring, sometimes we just don't pick up on it. The fact that this brain really is changing because we think it just happened last week. How can you tell me it's changing, right? Well, because the cumulative frequency of it wasn't as much as when we started. And we have to be reasonable about that. You know, our expectations sometimes are way too high for this is going to get done now. See, flip the switch. We want this on. Okay. So now with thank you. With motivation, motivation is also a component here. And we're actually wrong. It's out of time. I've spoken 9 minutes over. But we could talk about motivation, which is critical because the part of the brain that tells you what to do is that tells you what you like, the nucleus accumbens, and that's immediate gratification. The things you like right now, that you want right now, are the things that this part of the brain will light up and see if you want something. Interestingly, your executive functions have lots of connections between the reward center of the brain and your self-regulation managers, such that you say, I want that, your executive functions go, I can help you get that. Right? Whatever you want, I'm going to see you at your best self-regulating when it's something you want. And so now, what happens if you can't even get it under those conditions? Do you want this badly and yet you can't get it? There's some major problems there with your self-regulation managers. Usually they can pull it off. So you see, and we all know that. With attention, sure. 24/7, attention for video games, right? Hours at a time. Math homework, 15 seconds. See, I think there's a motivation component going there. See, it's not that you can't pay attention, because I know you can. I've seen you do it, right? You can do it if you wanted to. No, that's the different thing. See, many brains do not know how to get out of that loop to do the things you want them to do, because they're pretty much tied to the things they want to do from an early age. And we capitalize on that in many situations, right? If I want a 4-year-old to do something for me, I say to them, let's play a game. Why? Because they like games. See, I just got motivation to encourage you to do what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to make you work really hard with self-regulation, but you think it's a game. See how it's going to go? You're going to enjoy yourself, have a lot of fun, and work your butt off. But you don't think it's working your butt off, because I told you let's play a game. It's called the Soy Effect. And we use it very effectively because one, engage motivation. When you do that, Vygotsky in the 1930s would tell kids, stand still, don't move, right? 15 seconds in, it's gone. A minute in, you're gone, right? Oh, let's pretend that we're mountains. Let's pretend. This is Russia in 1930. There was enough to pretend that you're a mountain. And that got them interested, right? And he would get 10 minutes from them as a mountain. See? 1 minute as this is hard work. 10 minutes of let's play a game and pretend. 10 times the self-regulation when you're motivated. Today, that study's been replicated. It's down to 3. See? I can get 3 minutes out of a 4-year-old on average, not 11. Okay? And this isn't Russia in the 1930s. This is America in 2017. And we can get about 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, okay? But still, that's 3 to 4 times the self-regulation capacity when you're motivated, okay? And so motivating brains is important, but brains, and this, if you get stuck in this track, though, appreciate that's addiction. You got to appreciate that. See, immediate gratification, getting whatever you want right now, see, becomes the thing you want to do the most. And now you got great self-regulation. A lot of people who are addicted have no problem with self-regulation. Okay? That's the misnomer. They're self-regulating very effectively to get more of that substance that they want, and to let you not know it. See how that's going? Okay? Wow, that's some pretty interesting self-regulated behavior you got going there. But what's it in service of? See? You got self-regulation now serving one particular worker in the brain at a lower level instead of listening to where it should be. See, and when we detox, we take you off of that connection. This connection has to be broken, and once that connection is broken, then we have to say, now, if I break that connection but send you back to the same environment, it's going to happen again. But if I break it and change self-regulation so that it starts orienting towards self-determination, see, now I can pull you up this way. What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? Do you realize you're not going to get that if you keep doing this all the time? Okay? So we have to strengthen the connection between self-determination and self-regulation and avoid the nucleus accumbens, immediate gratification, taking over. Delayed gratification becomes critical. Okay? You have to learn how to do that or be motivated to do it. Your motivation has to shift from down here to be self-determination. The next level of management has to be pulling you up. See, it can't stay down there at that level. Okay, so and most of us can handle that, but sometimes things just get too addicting, like video games, like your phone, like anything, right? It can just be something that you do all the time, and you have to realize that's not the best thing to do. All right, and that's the intrinsic pathway, intrinsically rewarding. Now, external demand is the problem. What happens when we want brains to do what we want them to do? But it's not what they want to do. See, you have to disengage what you want to do, come over here and do what I want you to do. And that's really hard for many brains to figure out how to do that. How do I get from here to there, through this pathway? Some individuals will resist doing homework longer than it would take to do the homework. Okay? The message being, I have no freaking idea how to get my brain over there. Okay? If I did, I'd be there. I'm expressing my frustration with the fact that this can't happen for me right now. Okay? And you get a lot of that from individuals because they really don't have any clue how to just turn it on when you're looking for it. Now, if it's motivating, that's great. But if it's not, how do we get them over there? Well, many people say the way you get them over there is just to get your butt over here. You should realize it's as important to you as it is to me. Right? It'll never be as important to them as it is to you until they're your age with kids. Then they'll get it, see? But right now, it's just never going to be as important to them as it is to you. And so the issue becomes, now what do we do? Well, sometimes we offer rewards and punishments, right? If you do this for me, this is what you'll get. If you don't, here are the consequences. If that works, and you get a brain to come over here and do what you want it to do under those circumstances, do it as long as it works. Okay? As long as it works. When it stops working, what's plan B? If it doesn't work from the beginning, what's plan B? But use it as long as you can, because the reality is, and some parents and teachers tell me, I don't like that. It's like bribery. Does it have to be always have to be a reward? Oh, so you work for no paycheck. I'm thinking there does. See? And I'm thinking that if they learn this now, they'll be using it for a long time. See? If you work for a boss and you're not doing what you want to do, you're doing what your boss wants you to do, I'm thinking you're in this model, aren't you? And you're coming over here to get what you're doing what they want you to do because you're going to get what you want in the long run, see? But that's good, see, now, because what you're doing here is teaching them how to start developing delayed gratification, see? I'm not going to give it to you right away. You're going to do something for me first. And then after that, I'll give it to you, see? So now you're making them delay on the immediate gratification thing and wait to get the gratification after they do something for you. Now let's wait a week for that. Now let's wait a month for that. See how that's going? We're strengthening delayed gratification in the brain by offering rewards, but making it work longer for the reward, which is what you'll be doing as an adult, right? Okay, if the model works fine, use it. Now sometimes it doesn't, and with little kids, it sometimes doesn't either. So I love Daniel Pink's work in this area. He talks about the Soy Effect, which I mentioned earlier, which is basically get brains to think that what we want them to do, see, you basically are folding the external demand pathway in on the internal demand pathway. See, we're convincing you that all the things we want you to do are really things you want to do yourself. Okay? When you say to a 4-year-old, let's play a game, you got them hooked. Okay? So you're getting them to do what you want them to do, but they think it's what they want to do. This is subterfuge, right? It's the Soy Effect. It's better if it's your motivation. So when individuals are not aware of what their own motivations are, or they're too young, we're going to use this pathway of let's make this interesting for you and engaging so I can get the maximum out of your brain. And then the more I do that, see, the more you do it, enjoy it, the more capable you are of actually doing that without me having to tell you to do it. Once it becomes something you can do, you can regulate in a way that just increases the desire to do so. And it's a lot easier to do it. But figuring out how to do that with brains is a critical part. I have watched 11th grade teachers, Algebra 2, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm hearing all this noise come out of the classroom. I walk in there, and there's these kids are playing these clapping games that kindergartners would be playing, right? They're playing these clapping, and they're laughing and having a great time, learning facts on how to factor polynomials, right? And this is like an 11th grade classroom, and they're all awake and having fun. And I walk across the hall, and it's an Algebra 2 classroom too, and it's like death warmed over. Everybody is asleep, including the teacher almost, right? She's droning on, and then after it's over, the kids tell me, oh, I hate this teacher, she's so boring, right? And she says, I hate these kids, they're unmotivated, they don't learn. And I'm thinking, across the hall, it's all different. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's all kinds of reasons you're saying, but then again, you could be doing it differently, couldn't you? One teacher is selling it as something that's fun, and the other one isn't. Yeah, you should just get on board here. You should be motivated. Find your own motivation. Well, that's a little harder for a lot of brains, see? Especially if they can't think of anything that motivates them. Then you have to help them out with that, right? Entertaining is important. Today, there's lots of shiny objects out there. Education needs to be the shiniest object available, right? Otherwise, there's lots of other things to pay attention to. We often don't engage brains as effectively as we can. Okay, we want to stop there. I did mention to you, there's slides there for the directors, right? Self-determination, self-realization, kicking around 14. See, brains, whether you're ready or not, 10 to 14, brains wake up and realize this fact. There's nothing you can say or do to make me do anything I don't want to do. You can't force me to do anything. See, when you're not around, I'm my own boss. See, when you're around, what do I have to say to you to get you off my back? See, it's not lying, it's just, I'm the boss now. I'll take care of things. Yeah. See you later. See, so, but here's the thing. See, then that's the reality. Once they wake up, once they're self-realized and self-determined, see, they are running their own show. They have just hired managers in the self-determination, self-realization offices, put them in charge, but here's what you know about them. They're totally incompetent. They've been hired to do a job. They have no freaking idea how to do this job, right? You go, no. You think you're self-man. You think you're self-directed, but you really aren't, right? And no, they are. They're the boss. Yeah, okay. See, but so you have to educate that brain on how to be its own boss, right? Some are pretty good at that. They wake up and they go, here's what I'm going to do, right? But some wake up and go, here's what I'm going to do. And you go, whoa, that's not such a good thing. Okay. So we have to appreciate that. So now you can't tell them what to do anymore. You have to negotiate with them. Do you realize if that's what you want to do, what do you think might happen if you do that? And now at this point, I engage in motivational interviewing. It's no longer what I'm going to try to make you do to make your teachers and parents happy. It's what do you want to do? I can help you get anything you want. I know mind control techniques. I can teach them to you. You can get anything you want. I just need to know what it is you want. What do you want? I'm going to help you get it. And if they say something like Zach, like I don't want to go to that school because they said he's emotionally disturbed. You have to classify him. We have to get him out of this building. There's a program down the road. Work for him, right? So I sat down Zach. I observed. Yep, sure enough, he's acting the way they said. And I said to him, "Do you know why I'm here?" "Nope." "Oh, okay. No self-realization there. Why are you here?" "Principal said I had to come here." "No self-realization." "I'm here because you walked out of school last week. You just got up and walked out." That freaked everybody out. They think you're emotionally disturbed. They want me to evaluate you and tell them you're emotionally disturbed so they can send you to a program down the road. That's why I'm here. Let's wake up. Hello. Alternately, I could get you to do everything I want you to do. Everything they want you to do. And you could probably stay here. That could be the deal, right? But here's the thing. I'm not here to make you do what they want you to do. To call you emotionally disturbed. To send your program down the road. I'm here to help you get anything you want. Anything you want, Zach. I just know what it is. And he said to me, I don't want to go to that school. That's what you don't want. What do you want? See? 9th grade up the hill. I can help you with that. See? But you're failing all your 8th grade classes. I'm thinking another goal would be to pass all your 8th grade classes. Okay, that's good. But then by the end of this term, you're failing everything. I'm thinking you'd start turning that around by the end of the term. See? I want to get that goal a little closer to right now because way down the road is too far. See, for a 13-year-old. So you get it as close as possible and you work on it. Now that works for a kid like Zach because he knew exactly what he didn't want and exactly what he wanted. See? But then I get kids who have no self-determination manager, very incompetent, who say things like, play video games 24/7. See what just happened there? You go, oh, I just opened the door with this wonderful technique I'm going to use, and you just closed the door by saying something stupid like play video games 24/7, right? No, I don't stop. I told you, get you anything you want. I think I can do this. I know I can do this. Okay, I could get you out of school so that you could go home and play video games 24/7. And I told you I'd help you do anything you want. But before I do that, I got to write a letter, I got to talk to the superintendent. Before I do that, let's just run this through in your mind to make sure it's what you want. Let's just imagine, I got you out of school. Now you're home playing video games 24/7. It's been a week. How's it going? Oh, really good. Really? What do you think your parents would say? I'm thinking they won't be too happy about this, that I got you out of school, right? What might they do if they're not happy about the fact you're home playing video games 24/7, right? Yeah, that's right. I think they'll probably pull the plug and take them. That's true. So now you're home doing what? See, in other words, this is the world you created. This self-determination manager is in charge. This is what he says he wants to do? No, because when you said that to me, what I knew is he's incompetent. You're talking for immediate gratification. See? You are not there yet. If I don't help you build this self-determination manager, we're going nowhere. Okay? So now the process is, I have to keep going through this loop with you until you go, that's the stupidest idea ever came up. That was you. That's what you say. Now, what do you think you should do, right? See, so now I got to get them there, and sometimes just kind of lead them to a goal that's maybe a few weeks away instead of this video game thing they want to do all the time, right? And gradually build their brain. It's hard with some brains. It's difficult. But if we don't do that at the age of 10, we're not going to get in there. I can't make you self-regulate the way I want you to, or your parents want you to, or anybody wants you to, once you're self-realized and self-determined. You're going to regulate the way you want to. I got to make sure that you're regulating towards something that's pretty positive, right? Some kind of positive meaning in your life, so that it'll work out for you. But it's not easy. Okay, so that's at least those levels. If we break into the groups, I think, because I've taken more time than I wanted to, but you guys came late, so that's your fault. So if we could do that now, it'd be good.
So, what we're going to do now is we're going to go table by table and around. Give you an opportunity for your facilitator to ask questions. We talked about it a little bit. We'll see how the questions and answers are going. We can kind of switch our plan a little bit because we want to make sure that your needs are being met tonight. So we'll go through the questions and we'll see where we land at around 9 o'clock and what we want to do from there. So, Ellen, you want to start with the first question and I'll move out of the way and let Dr. McCloskey answer.
Sure. So our table, one of the questions that we were talking about is how do we, both as educators and parents, go from being a student's external control to supporting the development of that internal control, and then also to piggyback, if we step back too far or too fast, are there consequences to that?
Okay. And I think you can, I'll take the first part first, because the bridging strategies are what you just asked about.
Yeah.
Now, if other tables also have questions about that, well, let's just take one bridging strategy, and then if other tables have questions about it, we'll add more to them.
Sure.
The first one that I would suggest to you, let's see if it's up first, would be reflective questioning. Reflective questioning is a technique of getting brains to do the work themselves instead of you doing it for them. See, parents, teachers, we have what the developer of that motivational interviewing, Stephen Rollnick, called the writing response, R-I-G-H-T-I-N-G. We want to make things right. Let me show you how to do that. Let me show you how to do that, right? And kids are so great at asking us questions because basically the questions they ask us are trying to get us to do the front work. Okay? So we need to stop answering the questions and reflect the question back to them. What should I be doing right now? What do you think you should be doing right now? See? Don't tell them, ask them. The same question they ask you. No, here's how this game is going to go. You're going to do the hard work with your frontal lobe, and I'm going to tell you whether you're right or wrong. See, in other words, get them to give you a response. No, you do a little work for me first. Now that I know what you said, now let me give you my perspective on that. See, so now we give feedback about the accuracy of what they came up with. But if we keep stepping in, what are they learning? Passivity, right? I just have to ask my parents. I said my teacher, right? So the hands go up. No, hands go up. Fine. What's your question? Yeah, whatever it is, you reflect it back. Now, if it's a specific factual thing that they could never figure out for themselves, yeah, you tell them. But if it's thinking, if it's using your executive capacity about knowing what, when, and how, ask them first. How do I do this? How do you think you would do it? Right? And Zach kept saying to me, well, what should I do? I said, what do you think? What should I do? What should I said, Zach, we've been talking now for several weeks. What do you think I would say about that? you'd probably say this. That's exactly right. That's what I'd say. So you knew the answer to that question. Okay? Because here's why. Because you've been working with me so long, you know how I think. And you know the answers to your questions. If you just say, what would Dr. McCloskey say about that? I think you'd find the answer. Because you have been working with me so long, you know what I say. And that's what you want to say to yourself. So a bridging strategy also is, take me and put me in your head. And when I'm not around, ask me. What do you think I do? See, because there's the answer. See, because you actually know that. The more I confirmed that he knew that, see, the more confident he got about that. So that's a bridging strategy. Where's your model? Put your model in your head and ask a question. See, if you don't think you can answer it, ask it of your model. What do you think your best model would say about that? You know, and then so now you're getting to anticipate that as well. See? What would Jesus say? What would Buddha say? What would Muhammad say? What would whoever you want to put in there say? Right? Dr. McCloskey, whoever. Right? Keep me there as long as you need me. I got some of my graduate students now. I can still hear you in my head. That's good. As long as you need me, I'm there. All right? But that's your head, isn't it? I don't have to tell you. So we're moving from external control. When you put the other person in your head, you're bridging into self-regulation. See, gradually, you won't need me in there anymore. You'll be able to answer that for yourself. But in the meantime, I do want you to take the step. And I watched an individual who was developing a frontal lobe over 7 years' time, had none when he started the program at age 7. Polygyria, too many folds of the brain, not much of a cortex there. And they said, don't expect much from this brain. It's never really going to develop much. And these teachers took at age 7 at age 14, he looked like a 5-year-old. 5 years development in 7 years, and a frontal lobe people said would never grow. And I could tell you what they did, but it was very long and hard. But when I watched them now teaching him at age 14, they never told Jake what to do, ever. They just asked questions all day. Jake, what should you be doing right now? How would you know what to do? Is there a list somewhere? Is there a place where you know the steps? What step are you on? Did you do all the steps? Are you sure you did number 4? Are you sure? See, they never told him anything. They just kept asking him questions, making him use his frontal lobes to think about things, and then gave him feedback about that actual performance, right? But they were patient. They waited a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, sometimes 10, 15 minutes to get a response. We don't wait that long. See? If we don't get back from you what we're looking for, we jump in and do it. See? Okay, let me show you. No, that patience is so critical, right? We got to wait for you got to start understanding this. You're gonna do the work. I'm gonna respond to you. See? You're gonna learn how to be your own manager. It's hard to do that. It takes patience. Our kids and students are better at behavior management than we are. They understand they can extinguish your efforts to change them in about 2 trials. That's all it takes. They stonewall you twice, you go away. I tried, it didn't work. Okay, no. How long did you persist? See? Because the persistence, we need to persist to extinguish their resistance to what we're asking them. We have to persist longer than them to get them the message. I'm not going away. I'm here for the long haul. You need to get on the program because I'm not going to stop what I'm trying to do. See? And they'll resist initially. They'll go, no, why should I do the hard work? You always do it for me. And here's the games I play to make sure you do, right? No, that's not going to work anymore. Here's how it's going to go, right? And sometimes it takes a while for the brains to get that message. But if you do that, that's the first stage. It changes a lot of things in a lot of ways. Just start reflective questioning. Okay. And the second one is, how do you know whether you're on the right track or not? You never really do. You're trying to get there gradually. And what you do, Vygotsky talked about, the proximal zones of development. There's a stage in which you're at, and there's a stage in which you'd be challenged, right? We need to know where is your challenge, because if we stay in your comfort zone too much, then we're just letting you slide. So, metaphorically speaking, I'm a big proponent of throwing you in the deep end to see if you can swim. Okay? Let's push you further than you can go. That's okay. Let's learn strategies for not feeling overwhelmed in that situation, and for recovering. Yeah, you're right, you aren't there. That's okay. Fish them out right away. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to stress you. But here's the thing: stress is going to happen in your life. You ought to learn some strategies for getting used to it. Okay? Eustress, positive stress. Let me stress you enough so you really feel the need to do something. Okay? And if you no stress. We're raising a generation who can't be stressed, right? Are you kidding me? Life is about stress and positively handling it. No stress, no growth. Okay? Assimilation, accommodation, Piaget, Vygotsky, they all talked about this, and that's how you do it. So push a little bit and then pull back when you're not. Sorry about that. But if you're really there, you're further than I thought you were. So let's keep it up here and keep moving forward. See? Otherwise, they often do start sliding on you. It's hard. You just have to keep asking yourself, am I doing the right thing? Is this working out the way I think it should? Never stop asking your own brain questions. You know, and because you never really know, you're never really sure. It's just a matter of working through, muddling through with them to found that process.
Debbie, your table?
Thank you.
We did a lot of talking about technology and the use of technology, and you know, we compete with it a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, when do we use it? When do we get into it? We see lots of times our children or our parents are using it as rewards, and teachers are using it. So, what's the take on that?
Yeah, I think we need to start having more discussions about the world around. I mean, some teachers said, you know, they got so tired telling kids put away your phone, that they finally said, get your phone out and text your answer. It'll appear on the smartboard. So integrating technology into what you want them to do with it instead of them using it as something to avoid you, right, is the stage. Also, it's a double-edged sword. This can be extremely detrimental to you. It can be extremely effective and helpful to you, right? But there's a balance there. You need to know. It's a dialectic. There's no thing that's just all good. Everything can be good and bad. It's good and it's bad. So let's know what the good is. Let's know what the bad is, right? Here are bad habits you can develop using your technology. Here are good things you can do with it. So let's think about that. How are we using it? What are we doing, right? And do you realize that there's lots of people out there whose interest is to make a lot of money? And one way they do it is by making these games so interesting that they get you addicted. That's the whole point. The more you play it, the more money they make with your phone. So think about that. It's certainly very interesting, but why is it so interesting and what's really going on here, right? Help brains understand what's happening to them. Why are they getting sucked in? Why are things so interesting? But here's the interesting part about it. I noticed when you started playing that, you're having a lot of fun and you're enjoying yourself a lot. And now you're playing it a lot, but you're not smiling anymore. That's interesting. Just a thought. See you later. I never push on it, but I'm making observations to help brains start waking up themselves, right? Do you see what's going on here? I'm just curious if you see it. You know, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you might want to start thinking about that. You know, because I'm seeing something that's going on here. Just note it, especially after 10, because they're their own brain, and they might come around. But the more times you keep asking and thinking about those things, but it's education, it's discussion, and it's a process. We have to get used to the fact that technology is here; it's never going away, and it's going to be with us, and we have to find ways to make it serve us as opposed to the other way around. And unfortunately, you know, there's some articles being written now about how things are changing in that direction. And it's just going to be hard. They're hard conversations to have and hard patterns to develop in brains.
Thank you.
Erin, how about your table?
Sure. So we spoke a lot about how interventions, are often posed in terms of the positive, and the impact that it can have in, supporting, a child or a student to move forward. But we'd like to hear a little bit about any experience or suggestions you have for students who are resistant to interventions and who find that level of support or cueing frustrating.
And find it and say, I'm going to do it myself. No, don't help me, right? And so then it becomes a process of reflective questioning. So when you do it yourself, how does that turn out? Okay? Okay, fine. Do it yourself. But here's the thing. After you do it, we need to talk about how it went. You can try anything yourself initially. That's not a problem. But here's the thing. To get good at things, you need to evaluate your own performance and see how it went. And so debriefing is always critical, right? So I'm going to let you do it, but we should talk about how it went. If you say, because they'll say, no, I can do it, I can manage it. Okay, fine. What grades do you think you're going to get this term? Okay, and you write them down. And then you just ask them, how are you doing? Are you on track for getting the grades you thought you were going to get? Yeah, okay. Then the intern comes and they're not anything like what he said. Okay, so let's talk about that. You said that this was your goal, and yet it didn't happen. So let's talk about why it didn't happen and what you're going to do different the next time so that doesn't happen. And we were talking about this at the table. I think middle school, the message from education is middle school is when you learn how to get A's, not get them. It's when you learn how to get A's in high school. See, you may not be getting them now in middle school, but you're going to learn how to get them. If we just think you have to have A's all the way through and support them to get them, right? No, it doesn't work that way. You're going to have to start figuring out what you're going to have to do with your brain so you can get those A's that you want, if you want them, right? Which means learn from your mistakes. You get F's, you're going to get F's. Yeah. So, feeling good? Oh, you had to repeat a course in the summer. Wow, that didn't feel too good, did it? Now, I'm not an apologist for bad behavior. Consequences of your own actions should ensue. The consequences should fit the crime. It doesn't have to be over the top with it, right? It has to be focused on, yeah, there are some negative things that happen when that. So let's just follow this through. Consequences of your own actions. Stop giving zeros when kids don't hand in homework, teachers, right? Stop doing that. You know, here's a better model. If you take a test and you don't like the grade that you got on the test, you can retake the test, and the grade you get on the retake is the grade you get. Here's why. Because I know your goal is to have this grade and you didn't get what you wanted, and you made mistakes and you have to learn from those. And if it's math and you fail Unit 1, we're moving on to 2, and you haven't mastered 1. I think you need to learn 1, don't you? So how about you retake that test so that you can learn 1, okay? But you can only do it if you did all the homework. See? All the homework. Didn't do all the homework, the grade you get is the grade you get. Can't help you out, sorry about that. If you want to walk the high wire with no net, go ahead. And if you know your brain well enough, I'm not going to take points off you. My son had straight A's in math, but he was down to a C because he wasn't doing the homework. And I said to him, why aren't you doing the homework? Because it doesn't make sense to me. It's not right. I can do it, the math, without doing the homework and get A's. Why should I do this busy work? Well, that's a good point. Why should you? Which is what I asked the teachers, see? And they said, just because he has to. No, that's mindless obedience to authority. There's got to be a real reason, a real connection, not just because someone told you. Geez, you know, come on. That's not how democracies work, I'm hoping, right? Someone told me to do it, so I better do it. No, there has to be a good reason for doing that, and he's not figuring one out, and I'll take any suggestions you have in how to convince him to do the homework, because I want him to cooperate with you and get an A, and he's not getting an A right now, and I understand that, but tell me what to do. And they had no answers. What they said was, don't come back, stop asking questions. You're not allowed back in the building. Okay? And then they said, okay, you can come back, because I wasn't done. You can come back, but the principal has to accompany you. Okay? So the principal would accompany you to the classroom, and I'd sit down with the teacher and say, why are we doing this stuff? It's not making any sense to me. And they go, we just do it that way. You tell them. And the principal would go, we just do it that way. And we go, that's all we got? It's just we do it this way? Pretty much. I go, well, okay, I'm thinking there might be some other ways to do it. Here's some books you might want to read. Think about this, you know. And they thought I was a pain in the ass. Sure, I was. That went on the whole year. And then seven years later, that's my second son. 7 years later, my third son's going through this system. And he's in middle school. And he's doing some kind of Saturday chemistry quiz bowl thing, you know, I'm there. And the superintendent approaches me. Dr. McCloskey, can I talk to you for a minute? Sure. Remember when you used to come to the middle school and ask this question 7 years ago? Yeah. You were such a pain in the butt? Yeah. I'm thinking, where's this going? Because see, he, the superintendent, was the principal that accompanied me. He's now superintendent. He says to me, I got to tell you, I didn't want to throw my teachers under the bus. Well, I just said, you know, I stonewalled it. But it made me think, why are we doing this stuff? And I didn't have any good answers. And it was like a paradigm shift in my mind, and I started thinking, maybe we should do things differently. And he said, now I don't know if you've heard, but we're doing a lot of things differently in the district now. Well, of course, I'm a parent. I've heard. I love it. I think this is so great, what you're doing. Keep it up, right? Thank you very much, but here's the thing. There's some parents who don't like the new stuff. And you're the one that put these thoughts in my head in the first place. And I have to meet with them Wednesday night. You could explain this better than me. I think you need to be there Wednesday night to talk to these parents. They totally caught them in to do his job, right? How could I resist? I said, okay, fine. He introduced me and told me that story of the parents. This is the guy that asked me questions 7 years ago I couldn't answer, right? That made me do things different in this district. And he's going to tell you why. And that was pretty much it. But this is the thing. This is their homework policy. We just said. That was the new homework policy. See? Give it to them. Let them learn from the consequences of their own actions. You don't like the grade you got? I'm thinking maybe you should do the homework next time, right? See? If you want a better grade, do the homework. But if you're okay with it, fine. Sure. And I'm not going to punish you for the fact that you knew your brain better than me. And you didn't have to do the homework, right? You got some extra time. You could devote it to something else. Fine. So let them make their choices and let them learn from the consequences of those choices, right? Because you have to learn about these things. But make the consequences, you know, commensurate with the crime. That's the problem, right? And you can flip this around. Reflective questioning, right? We used to do the thing where we go, oh, that shouldn't happen. 2 weeks, no computer. That's it. 2 weeks, no computer, right? And then I said, and my wife would go, 2 weeks, no computer. And I go, oh, time out on the field. And I just say, Laurie, wait a minute. Can we do this for 2 weeks? Because we have to deliver. We say we have to do this consistently for 2 weeks. Now, I'm traveling, I'm doing this, you're doing that. Can we really pull this off for 2 weeks? No, I don't think we can. How about 2 days? Is that reasonable? Okay. After review of the play on the field, the call on the field has been changed from 2 weeks to 2 days. See how you do that? Right there on the spot, you shift it, right there. Sorry about that. See? And so that teaches flexibility, because kid goes, 2 weeks, are you kidding? Well, that's a good point. Maybe we are kidding. Let's reconsider that. No, 2 days. And then we figured this one out. Instead of doing any of that and have to call back and pull back, and how about we just do it this way? Oh, I can't believe you did that. Something has to happen here. What do you think should happen? What do you think the consequences should be? Eh? And the kid will go, 2 weeks, no computer. How about 2 days? Oh, 2 days? Yeah. So you get to commute the sentence and look like the good guy. You're delivering negative consequences, but you're the hero, because you just took it from 2 weeks down to 2 days. And they go, oh, thank you so much, right? Okay, so this is so much easier when you put them in the driver's seat and make them think about it. They will often come up with consequences that are worse than you could ever propose. And that's good, but then you can commute the sentence, Let's make it equivalent. But we have to get into this model, and they have to learn how to fail. And be stressed and learn from it. Okay.
Well, I want to make sure that everybody's questions.
Yeah, we got lots of questions, I'm sure. Second group, or third group, fourth group.
So when we were looking and discussing your fund and how it's variable as your child's executive functioning skills are developing, how do you prevent others from understanding that it's not a lack of motivation or effort given the variability, but also at the same time having your child or student realize that they weren't doing what they did today with how they were yesterday, almost that self-realization component. So it's an impact from the health.
A lot of discussion has to occur, doesn't it? I mean, we really have to be patient and willing to help other people see what we're talking about. And I don't have any, I wish I could give you a really good book about this. I'm trying to write it. I'm trying to get there because the things we talked about here, I've talked about so much that it's time to write the next book, and the one that's much more applicable than the first two I wrote, because they were more for academics. I just have to find. I'm doing 12 presentations in the next 14 days. Okay, if you can think that out, think that through. That's going to be interesting how I do that. But I got to stop and write some things sometime. But for now, it's talking about this and realizing the difference between motivation and the ability to carry it off, to pull it off, and how it's most often not a lack of motivation. Sometimes it's misdirected motivation, and sometimes it's not understanding that you need to have goals. If I'm working with a 13, 14-year-old who really hasn't developed self-determination, once we can clarify that you need to have goals, you need to be working towards something, and we can get a goal in place, and we can be self-realized about the fact that some things aren't going so well for you right now that need to start happening. Sometimes all the self-regulation just starts falling into place, because that was the whole point. It's never that you couldn't self-regulate, it's that you had no self-determination manager running them to supervise them to get them to do what you wanted to do. Now that you have a purpose and a goal, it's there. So make sure you clarify with them what their motivations are. From a very early age, what do you want? See, this is what we think should happen in education. What do you think should happen? Why do you think that should happen, right? Think about when you get out of high school. What do you want to do? It's never too early to start asking questions about that, to start beginning the rudiments of vocational maturity, because that's what's going to educate your self-determination manager when he gets in place at ages 10 to 14, right? And if you really kind of thought about that somewhat, it's going to be a lot easier. So just having conversations, open conversations about these things when their brains are calm and willing to listen to you. And these conversations may only be 4 minutes at a time or 2 for giving some brains and how quickly they like to move on, right? And so sometimes I'm working with kids and thinking, did they get that? Because it's like a minute and then we're talking science fiction. 2 minutes and we're talking science fiction. Another minute we're talking science fiction, right? And I go, we just spent 50 minutes, most of it talking about the book you're reading right now, because you like that a lot, because you're motivated to do that. But I had some important things I wanted you to remember. Did that get in or not? And then we see all blue that week, and you go, it registered. See? So it's just pick your moments and pick the way you discuss it in a way that kind of weaves it into things they're already doing. And this is tricky stuff, but it just starts with conversations. It just starts with figuring out how to start kids to realize the difference between motivation and being able to do it. But don't give up. If you want that, if you keep trying long enough, you're going to get there. I like Carol Dweck's work in this area. Anything you can show the YouTube about the power of yet. She has a TED talk called The Power of Yet, right? It's the idea. You're not there yet. Just not there yet. Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K. Yeah, she talks to you like you're preschoolers. Okay? Her delivery is kind of, okay, but the message is really good. Yeah. And she talks about, it's just, you're not there yet. You're just not there yet. You're going to get there. And that's hard for some brains. And hard for teachers, hard for parents, hard for everybody. But it's more acceptance of the fact that individuals are trying, but again, some things need consequences. It's not enough to say, I tried. Well, yeah, but you know what? Here's what had to happen, and it didn't happen, so you're not going to get that grade. Or here are the consequences that are going to happen, right? We can't just say, well, I'm so glad you tried hard. Because no. Here's what you needed to do to get that. You didn't do it. Okay, I know that's frustrating, but you're not going to get it. Now, what do you do next time to make sure you do? We got to have a strategy here, because that didn't work. What you just tried there didn't work. So what's your strategy? Let me know what you think. I'll support you with it. Give you feedback about it. We have to start moving it in that direction with younger kids, especially 10 and on.
Josh, question?
You talked about the delay of the frontal lobe, and it looked like it was sort of a percentage. So
and it's more like, okay, where at that first stage, when you start realizing this, at what age do you see them in terms of, at what age would you expect the behavior they're doing right now to be typical? Right? And that's, so we don't really have any very good charts right now to say, here, because it's really a qualitative thing more than it's quantitative. It's hard to describe. It's not like, here's a stage. It's inhibition. Now, what makes inhibition in an 8-year-old different from inhibition in a 4-year-old? The fact that they're more inhibited more frequently than 4-year-olds. So, and it might only be very infrequently that 8-year-olds are uninhibited, see? But this child has a problem with inhibition. What does that mean? Well, even the most uninhibited child I've ever worked with is inhibiting more often than not. Okay? You got to school. You didn't screw up on the bus. You got through 3 periods of classes. And then suddenly, Billy, why did you have to do that when the principal was observing me? You see what happened there? See, you were great all day, and then there's that moment of lack of inhibition, right? And it gets recognized. Nobody else did that, but you did. See, so it's more that thing of like, I'm seeing it in you more often than the other kids. You have a problem with that. We should talk about it. And I think there's no real good measures that we have right now for determining how far behind your peers you are. We just know whether you're doing it or not. Even the rating scales, is it happening or not? Okay, but then it's really an issue that 5-year-olds aren't as good at this, right? So we have to be patient with 5-year-olds. But you're not even quite there where we expect 5-year-olds to be, which means we need to help you get there, right? Because you're not quite there where we expect you to be at that age. And so it's not meeting age expectations.
So I think just an associated question, if we're seeing students that have delay, are there tools or strategies that can close that gap so that it doesn't compound itself over time, that then by 90 there's some equalizer? You
have to have a plan for it and say, here's a strategy we're going to try. But again, we have to use it a lot because, in order for it to start working and be useful to you, you have to do it. The more you do it, the better at you're going to get. So it's really having a strategy and getting them to apply it and getting them, helping them maintain the motivation to keep doing it, despite the fact that sometimes it's not happening, right? Because some kids have much fun. I tried, it didn't work. No, you got to try it a lot. And sometimes it's not going to work, but then it's going to start working for you, and sometimes it won't, sometimes it will. And again, the more you can monitor progress, and I would suggest to you even self-monitoring is one of the best ways to do this, right? Help them monitor their own performance, because sometimes we don't have time to do it, but the reality is you need to know. You say that's not going so well. What do you mean by not going well? Could we operationally define that? 5 times a week? 4 times a week? 15 times a week? I don't know. What are we talking about here? But if we know a baseline, now we can say, let's improve on that, right? Let's just try to get 1 more time this week where you're doing it instead of not. Now let's go for 2, let's go for 3. But if you don't know where you are, you don't know what you're starting with, then you can't monitor progress, can you? So that ability to kind of know how much it happens and then try the strategy and see how much it's happening or not happening. And like I showed you with that chart, don't be surprised if there's ups and downs, see? It's not going to suddenly start growing nice and even on you and suddenly we're 100%. Be patient for the brain to get there, because it's going to have to get there on its own. But you're giving it a template for success, and be encouraging.
Move us along, because I know people have got kids to get home too. And
Yep.
so, Liz?
Our question was about talking to our own children about their executive functioning difficulties while protecting how they're feeling about themselves.
Can you repeat the question?
That, yeah. There, again, it's wow. Protecting how they feel about themselves. Around age 10, brains wake up and go, why did you tell me I was good at that? I suck at that. Why have you been telling me all this time that I'm good at that? And I think we often do that because we don't want to hurt their feelings or we don't want their self-esteem to be, I think there has to be some real tests of reality about what you can and can't do. And I think if we always soft pedal on that, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. And I'm not so good at strategies for that right now. We were just talking about that. I don't know. I grew up on the streets. You got to appreciate that. From 9 on, the only rule in the house was be home by dark. It didn't matter what I did all day. Where I learned about my self-esteem was by being out there with a peer group that was like multiple ages, right? Older, younger, whatever the case may be. You tested reality and you got information and feedback real quick. See, real quick. There wasn't any time to feel bad for yourself. But you could if you wanted to. You could if you wanted to, or you could adapt. And so I think today, though, they're removed from the peer group that gives them that kind of support or feedback about you're not where you ought to really be, given your age and all that, right? And kids are better at giving feedback than adults are. And there's not enough of that today. Not enough group cohesion or group structure within society and communities to enable kids to learn from each other. So now they have to learn from their parents to get feedback from us. I try to do it with my sons. I try to do it as well as I could in being honest and open about, not overly criticizing, but saying, how do you think you played today? You think you had a good game? You think you didn't have a good game? Well, if you didn't think you had a good game, what do you think I do now? My 24-year-old said to me, or 28, he said to me graduating, why didn't you make me practice more? He got a music degree. He plays saxophone. He's really good. Why did you make me practice? Excuse me, let's not rewrite history. Let's go back. Do you remember all the times we said to you, you're really out of practice now, and you chose not to? Yeah? So, what do you think we should have done? Should we have tied you in the seat? Should we have forced you to practice, right? I think we tried our best to get you to practice, but you were self-determined and chose not to. And I think what you're saying to me right now is you're not happy with where your skills are. That's okay. It's never too late to start practicing and get really good. So if you don't like where you are right now, don't be telling me about what I didn't do for you 10 years ago. Get busy and start doing what you need to do to get better. Okay? There just has to be some reality testing here. And don't expect me to feel for you there, because, you made yourself feel that way. So I don't know. I'm a little bit, maybe, that sounds harsh. And sometimes I soft pedal it, but I think my wife does that a little bit more than I do. But I think there just has to be some reality testing. And I think sometimes there's just no way to sugarcoat things. You need to know where things are. And I've watched parents and teachers watch kids with autism and other kind of situations and just look at them sideways. Just look at them sideways, see? And we just start doing it. And everybody knows what's going on except the kid. Excuse me, that's very autistic looking behavior. Is that what you want to do? Don't do that. Don't do that, see? Now this is what we did with one individual, and I'll tell you what. We found him in a class with students with autism, severe autism, 6 of them, right? And within 5 years' time, he was gone from there through resource room into a private school, average IQ 120. When I found him, his IQ was 70. His IQ was 70. Now, here's what he wasn't getting. Feedback about what was happening. Okay? Don't do that, do this. It's more adaptive. Okay? But we don't want to hurt, no, we need to be honest and open and say things that we mean. A kid is screaming on the airplane. Just doing that screech thing that little girls do, right? I'm just losing my mind. It's just going on, and there's no parent saying anything, right? And finally, a little boy across the aisle from her looks over and goes, "You're really noisy, aren't you?" And his mother said, "Don't say, no, say that. Somebody needs to give this girl feedback, Because I was about ready to give it to her, right? And you really don't want it from me in those situations. You really don't want it from me. But it's like nobody's taking charge here and giving feedback about the accuracy of this performance, which is, it's not, right? That's not what you do here. And I watch so many people soft pedal because I think they're afraid to hurt feelings. And it's like, no, that's part of the game here, is learning how to deal with things that you don't like about yourself or don't want about yourself. I don't know. I'm not so good at that. I know Brene Brown now today has this empathy book, and it's a wonderful thing, and everybody's on the empathy bandwagon. But here's the thing. When I talk to Zach and other kids who are depressed, I don't ask them, how you feeling? And let's sit down, and I'll get down here and wallow with you for a while. No. Zach, what are you reading there? Science fiction? Oh, tell me about that. See, as I said to him, I diverted you. I don't listen to you complain. Instead of saying, how you feeling, I ask you, how would you like to be feeling? What can we do to get you there? Because I don't want you staying here. That sucks. And me coming down there and feeling bad too, if we're both depressed, what good is that? If one of us isn't depressed and you're depressed, I'm thinking I want you up here with me instead of both of us down here having a lot of empathy. Right? I want to help you get here because it's a lot more fun up here than it is down there. Okay? So compassion on top of empathy is critical. And if you're compassionate, I don't think it's going to be delivered in the wrong way. If you're compassionate, right? I'm thinking, I don't know. I may be wrong about that.
Jim, your turn.
Sure. We need a short consult. We're going to present you with a scenario. We have a student, 11th grader, who is very intelligent and does very well in his classes, AP classes, beautiful transcript, except the parent is doing major load management in terms of schedule, writing down assignments, looking across the week. There's theater, there's this activity, this homework is due. So this parent feels like her son's secretary.
Yeah, if they don't do that, he's going to fail.
Yeah.
His grades are going to go down, and then he won't get to the college he wants to get to, and they won't get this, won't get that, right? But then here's the thing: if they keep doing that, when he gets to that college, what's going to happen the first year? So you have to start thinking about that. At some point, this reality will be tested, and you're not going to be there. And so, if we don't build this skill within them now, when they get there, they're going to have to figure out how to get it for themselves. So I think that the part is to pull back and say, here's what I've been doing for you. Do you realize what I'm doing all the time, and the fact that that's why you're getting the grade that you're getting? I need to help you. We need some goals here and strategies. I need to help you get to the point where you can do this for yourself. But here's what I'm doing. Lay it all out for them, right? Here are the things that I've been doing. These things have to happen every day, every week, every month. Otherwise, those A's don't keep coming. Now, I'm doing them all. We need a plan and a strategy for me doing less of it and you doing more of it. And you can gradually shift it. It's not like cold turkey. You're on your own. Good luck, right? And collaborative problem solving. One of the bridging strategies is collaborative problem solving. You got a problem. You won't get A's without me. That's a problem. Do you want the A's? Okay. So we need a strategy that will help you learn how to get them without me supporting. What do you think that would be? See, they have to be included in the strategy development. Otherwise, we're still doing the frontal lobe thinking for them, right? Here's a strategy we'll use. No. What do you think is going to work here? And a great book on that is Ross Green's Lost at School, where he models how to get into collaborative problem solving with students and children, right? And how to really kind of get them engaged and involved in the process of finding something that's going to work for them. Because it's their brain. They need to come up with solutions, and we need to help them with them. But it does have to change. It has to change, but it has to be gradual. I'm externally controlling you. By this date, I want to not have to be doing that. I want you to be on these strategies and using them well enough that I don't need to be there for you anymore. Let's set that date. Now, how are we going to get there? What strategy can we possibly come up with? And then evaluate the strategy. How's it going? Is it working? What's wrong with it? What do we need to change? Maybe we need to alter the strategy, right? Don't forget what it is. Write it down. Write the steps down. And then you use cue for the strategy and gradually fade those cues over time. But then it could be a mission of 3-4 years, right? If it starts in 9th grade, you go, okay, by 12th grade, you really got to be taking this over. And the sooner the better, because without me, what do you know? If you can get there by 12th grade, you can have the confidence now that when you get to college, this is going to happen for you. But if I'm still helping you at the end of 12th grade, think about that, right? I won't be there next year. What's going to happen next year when I'm not there? Who will you rely on to do these things? And some of them actually are able to do it for themselves. Okay, because really, they could always do it, but the fact that you were willing to do it, they go, okay, if you're willing to do it, fine, Okay, see, that's what. So now the strategy has to be there, and they go, oh, so you're going to pull back now, okay, and they pick it up. See, but they could really do it, some of them, and others, they really couldn't. And if they really can't, we have to be patient and help them out with that. But the goal has to be there. I really want to see you be able to do this on your own, because this is something you have to do by the time we get to college, right? No, and be patient.
Mary, her table. I had every table except for Mary's, right?
Yeah.
So we have a question about students who are bilingual, and as they're doing their schoolwork, is it best to speak in English because they're doing English here as you're helping them with their schoolwork? Is it distracting because they're translating their pen back and forth?
Sure.
And what's the role of
Sure.
executive functions in that?
Well, I'm biased. I worked with New York City schools for several years, and every possible perspective on bilingualism exists in that school district, right? In terms of the best way to teach children who are bilingual. And the answer is, one size doesn't fit all. And I would say it depends on the age. If you're 10 to 14 and you're self-determined, let's talk about what language you want to speak and how much English you want to use or not use. And if you don't speak a lot of English, what job will you be getting? What will you be doing, right? And if they've got a great scenario within the community where that's going to work out for them, their motivation to speak more English is not there, is it? So I need to know their motivation. Do you want to speak English well? Do you think it's important to speak English well? If you do, then where are you at with your skills now? Okay, where do you want to be? Now, how do we help you get there? And how is it impacting? How is where you're at right now impacting your studies? Because the reality is, as you start learning English more, you don't speak your native language as much. You hit that point, right, where neither of them is very good, and you have to get through that hump till English is better, right? And some of them, that's where they start falling apart. That hard jump of, do I go English or do I stay with my original language? Make that decision. Make a decision. Let's move in the direction that you want to go. And I think, for education purposes, we often say it's better for you to learn English, to speak English, because that's the dominant language of the culture. But then again, that's a bias, isn't it? That's a strong bias. And I don't necessarily want to force my biases on brains. What do you believe you need to do to succeed? Do you think you can succeed without speaking English? What would that look like? How would that happen? If you got a plan, you got an idea that sounds feasible, I'm not going to mess with your brain. But if it's not a very good plan, you got to challenge it and say, are you sure that would work out that way? And now, what would the advantage of speaking English be? So I have to start helping kids take more control of that process, right? They need to metacognitively process these things as well. When they're younger, we're trying to guide them through the process. But there's so many factors. What are the parents saying about this or not? What are their models? And so there's so many factors that affect whether you are motivated to learn English, one, and how good you are at learning it. But the reality is, you need to get in there and speak it. The more you speak it, the better you're going to get at it, right? But some kids they do struggle with academics, and this is a big load because they're just adjusting to so many things. And we can help them through as best we can if we know, one, by making it interesting and fun. That would help. Okay, when they're younger, 10 to 14, I need to know what you want. I can help you get it. How does English language proficiency play out in that picture, right? They got to take charge of it. It's their brain, and we want to do, as educators, we want so much for kids to succeed, and we want to help them succeed. But sometimes we just do too much in that direction, and we don't realize the extent to which we're trying to get brains where we're pulling them somewhere we want them to go, without realizing they have their own agenda in there, and we got to help them see what that agenda is and go where they want to go. And sometimes it's not always where I want them to go. College isn't for everybody, right? Have we started to finally figure that out? Right? I think we started. Now the studies from Harvard and Stanford are coming out the opposite way. Maybe college isn't such a great idea for everybody, especially given all the debt, right? Maybe there are better ways for you to realize your talents and express them in the world and actually make some money in that. And if you're not oriented to college, what's the big deal? And if you want to wait a year or 2 or 3 or 4 before you go, what's the big deal? Okay? Maybe you'll be saving a lot of money because reality is your brain may not be ready to do it right now. And 4 years from now, it will be. That's money better spent than finding that out the first year after you fail out of college first year, right? So I think there's just ways we have to open up to realities and say, maybe we're trying to structure things too much. for kids? Too much? I don't know. Had a kid wanted to be a magician. His parents said, yeah, he has to change. He can't do that. Here's where he's going to be, right? Fix my kid. So I talked to him, and he wants to be a magician. He's practicing magic tricks all the time. He's getting C's. He used to get straight A's. Now he's getting C's because he's always practicing magic. What do you show me your tricks? Oh, you're pretty good. Here's my list of tricks. Wow. Why do you have a list? Because they're sets. You do shows? Yeah, I do shows. What kind of shows? I do shows at a hotel. I know this hotel. It's in Long Island. You do shows there? Yeah. Do they pay you? Yeah. How much? $1,500. You don't want to be a magician. You are a magician. You're self-determined, you're self-realized, and you're self-regulating to achieve your goals. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. No. You have to fix him. He can't be a magician. I think he wants to. And I think I can't change this brain. So how about I work with you in adjusting your activity? He can do what he wants to do. See? 3 years into it, he's a magician making pretty good money. Then he decides he's going to go to clown college. And he goes to clown college. He's a clown for 10 years. And then he finishes that, and now it's time to go to college. I think I'd like to go to college now. See how that works? Let him do it. Because if you try to force them there, you're not going to have a good relationship for the next 15 years, Enjoy it. Go to the magic show. Go to the circus. Watch him do his thing, right? Give him honest feedback about it. You're a magician, but you suck at this. Are you sure you want to do this, right? If you do, keep working at it, you'll get good, right? But right now, you're not quite there, right? I mean, honest feedback is okay. But if you're great, that's so wonderful, you're a great magician. I can't wait to see what you come up with next, right? We just have to kind of get on board with their agendas, because they want to have their agenda so badly. They really do. And when you sit them down and say to them, what do you want? I can help you get it. It just changes the whole, what? You're talking with me? I thought you were going to lecture me. No. I'm going to help you get what you want. And they go, wow, that's a new one. Okay. All right. I think we can talk. I could talk all night about these things, but I know we have to wrap it up.
Such a topic, but I want to thank all of you for just being here, listening. It was so much information. I really appreciate your engagement in the evening. And Dr. McCloskey, thank you for coming and meeting with us tonight. He's meeting with our faculty tomorrow, so it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and if you could think about takeaways on your own, that would be good. I hopefully have some. I hope you have some, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We lost it.